Now I'm going to set the type under range 1. We're only going to be working with one range selector. I'm going to select the type and make it an on or off trigger. Like that. And I'm going to set it just by default. I'm going to set it up here on this line. And I'm going to scrub through here. And you can see anytime that this bar, for example, this bar is right here, it's below it. This bar is going to shoot above it as I scroll forward. This output box over here, depending on how far this goes above, enhances the value. But we have our type set to on and off trigger. So it's really just going to trigger between 100, a value of 100, and 0, which is like on and off. But it's going to go up, and while it's over that, you can see now that the output is at 100% because it's over it. And as it comes back down, bam, it goes below it there, then it triggers off. So we're pretty much good. We have both that segment, and it should switch over to the next base here, bam. And then that one goes on, stays on, goes off, on, off, and on. All the way through. And this is really useful, because believe it or not, it's not only visual, but yeah, it's very accurate, and you have a lot of control over the variables. Remember guys, gotta experiment with those variables. So, I'm gonna hit apply. It really is that simple. You just hit apply. Give it a second, because it's generating a lot of keyframes over a period of 10 seconds in my comp. And now I'm gonna pull down the sound hits layer, go to effects, and you'll see our sound keys. Pull down range 1, and here it is. It's already keyframed for us from beginning to end, and the value ranges, you'll see it's 100 here, and scroll forward, and at this point it's 0, 100, 0, 100, etc., all the way through. And those are the values we're going to be using in our expressions. So I'm going to keep that expanded, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide this layer. I'm going to hide it, and I'm going to unhide our other two layers, our wave and our text layer. Now, I'm going to come up to about 2 seconds, and the next thing we need to do to our wave layer is actually make it look more and more like a wave, believe it or not. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply 2 additional effects, very straightforward at this point. We already have our wave generated. We're just going to apply a blur, specifically a Gaussian blur. If you've ever worked in any other Adobe programs, you're probably familiar with it. We're going to set this to a value of 40, and that effect is done. Very nice thus far. We're going to go to Effect, we're going to add one more, and we're going to also add a trap code shine. Now when I was making this effect, this was actually kind of a happy accident, and I'll show you why, but yeah, I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to colorize it, and I'm going to keep this orange just for now. I'm actually going to adjust the orange, but what we're going to do is we're going to set our shadows to that bluish green, kind of what we had before, something like over here. Drag up maybe a little more blue, and that works. Now, what I'm going to show you real quick is kind of this happy accident I was talking about. Whenever it comes together, you know, I had an idea. If we increase the ray length to something like 10, really high, making the rays stand out a lot more like we did with the text, and then set the boost light to something around 14, we get an awesome effect here. And basically, as those rings start to form and spread outwards, there's that kind of burst of energy from the center, which is really sublime. What we're going to do now is just adjust that color to be more like a sun. And I'm going to keep that same orange spectrum. I'm just going to adjust this a little bit like such, to be a little bit desaturated, but more towards the whites. And that's about good for me. And now we have this really cool effect every time one of these ripples is generated. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Alright, so I'm going to come back here to the beginning, and as that one's about coming out there, I'm going to leave it there. I'm just going to pull these back up, because we are done with that point, or that layer, and what I'm going to do now is we're going to begin adding our expressions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go under, pull down the wave, and it's good that we have our sound hits already expanded here, because we're going to be tagging that output layer for our expressions. We're going to be using that data. So wave, effects, and then we're going to be messing with the radio waves, specifically under the wave motion, and as I said at the beginning here, the velocity is what we're going to be messing with. So I'm going to alt-click that, and we're just going to delete what's there. I'm going to select the pick whip tool, brings out this springy thing, and I'm going to scroll up, bring it up towards here, and up, and drag it right onto the output value. And what that does in my expressions is, if you already have watched my previous tutorials, then you already probably know this, is it grabs that value and sets it to whatever this is. But we're going to be doing some adjustments here. I'm going to set x equal to that. And I'm going to pull this down so you can better read it, as always. Now what we're going to say is if this value, x, which is the value of the output layer, so to speak, the output keyframes, if x is equal to 100, since we had it set to the type set to trigger on or off, it'll only toggle between 100 and 0. If x is equal to 100, then we're going to set the value of the frequency to, set it to 0.5. Else, open up the brackets, basically saying if it's not equal to 100, meaning it's probably going to be 0, we're going to set the value back here to 0.0, semicolon to end that, and believe it or not, we're done. And now our frequency, or the output, or emission, if that's a word, our radio waves emitter is actually going to be emitting whenever the value equals 100, whenever that base comes in, which is a really nice effect. But I'm sorry, I got an unexpected semicolon error. Okay, now I look at this. You can't have value equals 0.0. You have to say value, some action is being done to that. Value equals 0.0. My apologies. So if x is equal to 100, that means the base came in, set the value of the frequency to 0.5. Else, otherwise, if it's not equal to 100, meaning it's probably going to be 0, we're going to set our value to emit to 0. And it is really that simple. And it starts off here, and it does go. The base comes in, so it starts off and it emits. And the next one, I believe, is up here some ways, and there it is. Yep, 4 seconds in. Nice. And that really takes care of our expressions. Now, optionally, you can do any fade-in effects that you want. I'm just going to do a simple opacity fade, pull down my something cool layer, pull down the transform, and I'm going to set a keyframe, and I'm going to set the value of that keyframe to 0. Then I'm going to scroll forward to, let's do 1.5 seconds, about there. Insert another keyframe by clicking this diamond button, and I'm going to set the, double click it here, pops this up, and I'm going to set the value to 100%. So it fades in as that comes on. Pretty neat. Pretty neat. Bam. Alright guys, as always, my name is Graham with Tutorial Clarity. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you find it useful. And yeah, be sure to rate, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. Tell your friends. I love getting feedback, and I love the word being spread. So I hope you enjoyed this, guys. Really, I do. And take care.